Okay, so yesterday just a quick 1 minute touch up. So yesterday we spoke about what is DevOps and what is the brief, what is the main branches of DevOps. I mean CI and CD, and what are the steps included in it, which tools we predominantly use, and what are the, because DevOps is a philosophy, right? What are the major principles that we need to think of when we are working out DevOps? And also, what I mean by think of is when even when you are going for any interviews or when you're designing something, you need to keep those principles in mind, because that's the most important part. Because if you know that part, that solves 50% of your problem. Other than that, services that you will definitely learn, and there's no stop to that learning. But the main principles should remain with you, right? And apart from that, there were a few metrics that we also need to follow when we are designing or doing art debugging or any other sorts of task or monitoring, right? We need to stick to few metrics, major metrics, I would say. So we also discussed about those metrics, right? Okay, so if you have any doubts, we can touch up, we can take it up later. But maybe I go ahead a bit on this. Okay, so today we will talk about why suddenly has cloud become so much a buzz, right? And why do we need cloud? And then we will move into starting with GCP, right? Okay, just to give you an understanding of why suddenly cloud has become so much interactive and so much a buzz, right? So there are few major things why cloud computing has been so attractive, right? So if I tell about few characteristics, right? So first would be, if I tell you, just again take up a text box so it becomes easier. But okay, y- so the first would be on demand service. Okay, so what I mean by on demand service is, let's say we are we can let's say I we can rent out, okay, instead of buying servers. I hear someone is working for Linux or a Unix have a Unix background, right? So he can relate, right? For those kind of situations, what you have to do is, if mostly you are running on premise and you have to buy your servers before doing any running any application, right? But what cloud has given us is, in simple words, you can rent, okay? Instead of buying the entire thing, you can rent it out based on your requirements, right? Let's say I really need a 16 GB machine. I go to my cloud provider and tell them, hey, give me a 16 GB machine, right? And they quickly give you. And once you are done with that machine, you can just tell them, hey, I am done, and they will not charge you anymore, right? So that saves a lot of cost, right? So this is one part. I won't go much deep because these are very rudimentary to understand. So I'll touch upon that, and if you want to note it down, you can also keep a note of it. Second would be broad network access. Okay. So what do we mean by broad network access is, let's say we talk about few metrics yesterday, right? Latency, throughput, availability of systems, right? So these metrics has to be followed when we are trying to do we are trying to implement DevOps philosophy, or uh, in any generic terms, right? Even if you are doing some setting up an application server, it has to be dynamic, right? It has to be available across all regions, because you can have your, if your clients are there in India, in US, in UK, then if the servers are not present near to them, they might have a latency or a throughput, right? Means the bandwidth in which the data gets transferred to them, there would be lag in that, right? So it's very difficult for you as an organization, right? It's to set up those data centers into multiple regions, and it takes up huge cost to do that first, right? And second, there are security policies, and you need multiple other permissions to do that, right? But again, when you come to cloud, right, they give you a global infrastructure, right? Means it is present on across many geolocations, and when you divide those geolocations, they have data centers in India, right? And again in India they have separated it based on few zones, right? So that if a person is sitting in Chennai is not affected by the data center in sitting in Delhi, right? I'm just giving you an example. Let's not take where it is located. We will come to that. So in that scenario, again cloud has managed that, okay, let's take some strategic locations and then put some data centers nearly, right? So that again those users are not affected. So this is how they have incorporated those broad network access in terms of uh, three major terms, I would say: regions, availability zones, and edge locations, right? So what are regions, availability zones, and edge locations? We will come to that, but just give you a high level, right, to help you know what are these. Means the broad network access stands for regions, AZ, and edge locations. Okay, so number
Akash,
three would be
Akash, can you speak a little bit louder? Because
okay,
what you're saying, the terminologies I'm unable to understand.
okay. Is it for everyone or yes, no, maybe? Is it better now, Shivani? Hello.
It's better now, but the terminologies you are speaking, I'm unable to catch up.
Okay, I'll speak a bit louder and slower, right? So I guess
Yeah,
you
when you're
picked
saying
up
about the regions and uh, zones, these kind of stuff, yeah, how this will
under
work? Yeah,
okay, understood. So I was just telling that the broad access network that we are speaking of, it can be divided into in cloud terms as regions, availability zones, and edge locations, right? So what are these? I'll go much deep into when we start and doing ahead with the course, right? Just to give you a higher overview, right? So regions, what I mean is, let's take uh, if in US, right? US is a very big country, right? So now what they have done is they have divided US based on few strategic locations, right? And then they have put that into they have placed their data centers into multiple locations, right? Which they tell us, let's take US East is one of their region, right? But in US East also is US is a very big geographical location, right? So to again segregate that and to help the users access their data faster, so they have again, and also for disaster recovery, they have again distributed or divided into multiple strategic zones, right? Which they call it availability zones. Okay. So let's say US East 1A, US East 1B, US East 1C. This is one sort of naming conventions that they do use, right? So your data is now separated and is kept at different locations, so that if one is compromised, you have the other system available where your data can go where your data is hosted, and the users end users are not affected, right? This is what the problem they tried to solve with broad network access, right? And there's one more very beautiful thing about edge locations, right? So what is edge locations? We have some dedicated sessions for that. It's a bit advanced if, to understand right now, but I'll tell you on a higher level. Let's say there are many few countries where they are yet to set up their data centers, right? But they are moving ahead. But for them, what they have put up is edge locations. Edge location is in what I mean is, let's think of as a mock location, right? So whenever your data is trying to go to those locations, what happens is the data gets first cached. So what is cached is just a temporary storage to that location's data center, and then the data is fed to those users of that region, right? Or location, a region, I would say. So what happens is next time, uh, let's say my original data center is sitting in US, but I'm taking an example, okay? I have a main data center at US. I am trying to connect to some user sitting in, let's say, Kazakhstan, right? So Kazakhstan might not do not have that regions, or the data center, original data center set for them, so they cannot select that region when they're setting up any resources, right? So what they try to use is edge locations, right? So what happens is when some user from Kazakhstan is trying to access data sitting in US, what happens is they first hit the edge locations, or they first in the first go they hit the edge locations. The edge locations fetch the data from the data center sitting in US, and then the user is fed with the data. But there's one advantage to that is the data which got fetched is now cached into the edge locations. Okay, it might sound a bit tricky right now, but I'm just giving on high level to understand. So it sits over
Okay.
there, and okay, it's temporarily cached, right? And next time when again the user is trying to hit from Kazakhstan, is trying to get the data does not is not fetched from USA. Okay, it's fetched from that local edge location. So what happens is the data is fed faster, there is very low latency, there's high throughput. Okay, so that is how cloud has become so much interactive, right? There's less hop of network when you're trying to access the data. Understood?
Yeah. Are you walking us through the with the examples?
Yes, I was speaking of an example, right? Of
Yes. Can you please show us in a console?
in console, yes. I was just speaking on some overviews. Then I have dedicated
Okay. Okay.
PPTs, and then on the thing, right? So
Gotcha. Yeah.
bear with me a bit. Yeah, I have dedicated PPTs and on consoles. Yes. So this is on a high level. So just taking you why cloud, and then we can go ahead instead of just going blank start on GCP console and trying to speak on the services. Okay. So next would be why again cloud is a multi-tenancy and resource policy. So what? Oh, okay, I have put a percentage. Yeah, what do I mean by multi-tenancy and resource policy? Multi means, as you can understand, is multiple, right? And what do you mean by tenancy? Tenancy mean can be multiple customers, right? So what it end of the day means multiple customers can share the same infra for their running their applications to get a more higher privacy and security, right? Because think about one thing, right? When you talk about a VM machine running, right? When you do that setup in cloud, right? In the console, you just do some button clicks, and you set up a VM, right? But at end of the day, it is spinning up, it is running on a real servers, right? On your data centers, there are racks, there are switches, there are routers getting originally utilized, right? So these type of setups, this multi-tenancy and resource sharing, these are actually physical resources that are when you define this, these are actually segregated for your privacy and security, and you can utilize this, right? And I'll show you when we spin up an VM where to hit those and how to create those specific ones. But these are much more costly. So yeah, when you have your demands, let's say from private security purpose, you don't want your data to go out and sit on some common servers, then we definitely use this kind of scenarios, right? Apart from that, this is the most high advantageous thing: rapid scalability and elasticity. Okay, So what do I mean by scalability? We all can understand, right? We can scale. Scale I mean is when your traffic is higher, you can quickly scale up your resources, and when your traffic is down, you can scale it down, right? So there is more elasticity of going up and going down based on a particular criteria which you can set up via your monitoring tools or via your load of that sort, right? But I want to touch base on a very myth over there, right? So when someone asks you, right, what is scale down and what is scale up, right? So people do definitely get confused, right, between these terms. So there is two different things over here, right? Horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. Does anyone has any idea what is the difference between these two?
No.
Okay.
And Akash, one quick question we have.
Mhm.
Actually, I joined the session is today only. Actually, this session will cover like completely GCP admin with DevOps as well, right?
Yeah, so this is spread up into two parts. So first we would cover the entire GCP admin and then the DevOps, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
I guess a syllabus shared with you for DevOps, right?
Yes, correct. And also, I have one quick question. Like
Mhm.
in this admin part, will you cover like security as well, like cloud security part?
Yes, yes, not all the services and that falls under security, but uh, yes, we will cover means how much is required for an intermediate level and based on your cloud GCP Cloud Engineer examination, right? There is a strict syllabus to that.
Correct, correct,
We will
correct,
follow
correct.
that. Yeah.
Correct. And also like in real time, like in day-to-day works, who is going to support like in DevOps, I mean cloud DevOps engineer in in MNCs and all. So what's the real time work going on? Like how the setup is in real time? Will you show that one as well, right? In that
Yes.
in organization, how the cloud, let's suppose if it is in Java application, if it is in Java application or Angular application, so it will deploy into the Kubernetes. So in Kubernetes dashboard, how it will be and like how it will deploy it into the Google, like a Google Cloud. Will you show that one as well, right, in this syllabus?
Yes, there are two parts to your answer. So the first part is
Yeah.
yes. When you talk about where it is getting deployed, I have dedicated sessions for deploying and setting up your GKE or Cloud Run, and then deploying deployment for you. Because we won't not much digress on into Kubernetes in the first part. Kubernetes would be covered in
Mhm.
the second part of into the DevOps part, right? But yes, the first part is of deploying, how to deploy, how to set up your GKE. That becomes the again one of the predominant part to be covered in the GKE course. GCP admin course. Yes.
Okay, that's great. And also, like we can able to apply the jobs like a GCP admin as well. If we come to this session, if we right,
Yes.
like as a
Yes. Any.
GCP, yeah, GCP admin guys is in separate openings is there in organizations as a GCP admin.
It won't be like generic terms. They would give you GCP admin, but wherever you see GCP related resources, right, in your JDs,
Yeah,
you can go and
yeah,
apply for those, right? Because yes,
yeah.
in
Oh,
one word I can say that.
yeah, that's
Because
great.
you'll have
Okay,
the
thank you.
knowledge of GCP right now, right? Along with other cloud providers if you know of.
Correct,
So
correct,
yeah.
correct. Thank you so much for Akash. Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Okay. No issues. Okay. Let's then come back. I was just speaking about there is a myth going on there of related to scaling out, scaling up, or scaling down, or scaling in, or scaling out, right? So these are four different terms. I'll just quickly write it down. Horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. Okay. So when I talk about scalability, these are the two basic principles that it falls upon: horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. So what I so let me give you first an example, right? So let's say I have 100 users hitting my application, and my application was designed in such a way that it was used to support only 50 users, right? So there are two possibilities now can be done. One, I let the application crash, right? And that would be a scenario that we want to go to. The second would be we think of a situation or just a way out, that how can we support this 100 users who are hitting us, right? So there can be two ways. One, we can increase the system configuration that we are using, or adding up systems of the same configuration, right? If this example is a bit more uh, harder for you, I can break it down into very another simple example is, let's say we all use pen drives, right? Now my pen drive has exhausted of I was using a 4 GB pen drive, and now the pen drive has exhausted its 4 GB of memory, right? But I need to store few more data, right? So what I can do is either I increase the memory of that same pen drive, right? Let's say I change the chip and I put a 8 GB out there, and then my it got scaled up, right, in one scenario, and I can fit in my data. And the other way would be I buy multiple two other pen drives of 4 GB, right? So this is what I mean by the first example is when I am increasing the memory or the specification of the device, I mean horizontal scaling. Okay, that there are two terms to it, uh, that is scale up and scale down, right? Scale up and scale down. So scale up means when I'm increasing the number of the memory configuration, let's say 4 GB to 8 GB, it's going scale up. And when I'm if I can again bring that down from 8 GB to 4 GB, that is scale down. But in generic terms, when you are doing it, it is not feasible, right, to every time do now, because there is certain limits. You can't go beyond. Let's take you are already using a 128 GB machine, right? But now if a load again comes up, you cannot bring it to 256 and then again bring it to 512 1 TB. It cannot go like that, right? So cloud has again given you a very good thing, that is vertical scaling, right? So based on your demand, you can increase the number of instances, and again when you don't have those requirements, you can again scale it down, right? It's see, I also am doing the same thing of repeating the horizontal scaling terms, that is scaling not scale down, right? But it's basically not that, it's scale in and scale out, right? So let's from this class let's come to this, right? We will not do this terminology difference, right? Because that changes the meaning of the entire term, right? It is not typing.
Akash, one doubt. I think horizontal scaling is increasing the resources, like increasing the server, and vertical scaling is increasing the CPU.
No,
Uh,
it's the other
yeah.
way around. It's the other way around, which you just said.
Okay.
Horizontal scaling is increasing the resources, while vertical
Yeah.
scaling is
Uh,
increasing the number of instances.
number of instances.
Yes.
Actually, I remember like that. Okay, let's see.
So I'll give you one more thing how you can quickly example is think about x-axis and y-axis, right? we all have gone into graphs. So if you are thinking of x-axis, just think in increasing the number of instances, that is scale out. Not able to type. So scale out means adding of more instances to support our application of same instances, and it can be other instances also, but generally we go with same instances. And scale in is removing uh, instances based on load, right? And this can be done with a very good uh, uh, service known as managed instance. We will talk about managed instance in GCP. Okay, so this terminology should be clear going ahead. And this is a very most common interview questions in asked across any years of experience you have, because there is a confusion between the two, and you will get asked if you mostly. Okay, and the last one is measured service. So as I was telling you, in DevOps, they follow a principle that everything should be measured. So basically, when I talk about measured service, there are multiple resources given to you. So that you can, when you're running a service or an application, you can measure it accordingly, right? I'll not go much deep. These are terminologies you need to know. Okay, apart from this, just a quick more thing is cost optimization. That's again false, one of the predominant usage. So what do I mean by cost? So based on the on-demand services and based on renting out resources from them, so it does give you a very good cost saving, right, when you're running any application over there. And moreover, there are two terms that you will also need to remember is when you're working in this industry is capex and opex. Okay, so what do I mean by capex? And opex. Okay, so capex means trade capital expenses and opex means operational expenses. Okay, so what earlier used to have is when you're buying, keep on continuing buying servers, you basically are going more into your operational expenses, and your profits in the organization comes down, right? If you involve more into your opex part, right? But with cloud, what has happened is because you are going and renting it, so your cost of ownership or TCO, which we call them, your TCO is basically coming down, which also now in turn saves your operational expenses. So it is basically inversely proportional. So if your TCO is higher, your operational expenses tends to go down, right? So these things, these are very nitty-gritty terms that you need to remember. If you are taking a note, please write this down, right? Okay, these would be the major things why we need cloud. I'll just quickly go ahead with starting a few basic things, and then again I have one other thing to tell you before we go into one of the specific service, right? Okay, so I think I have already spoken you about why cloud is required. I won't go much deeper. So here is one example of an online shopping app. It was designed in a way that a load is catered to it, but when the load went higher, it was not able to work with those amount of load on the weekends and holidays. And then that is the reason why people are now moving to cloud, because again they need to don't have to take that ownership of buying servers and then putting it up, right? So the setup is now more easier to do in cloud, right? Yes, so these are the cloud advantages. So this PPT would be shared mostly near towards the end of the course. So you don't have to write down each and everything, only a few terms or notes. If you want to write it down, you can go ahead and write it down for yourself, right? For revision and for quick notes, right? So these global advantages, cloud advantages, I've already spoken about. And then what is GCP? We all know because we all know we have come together such in such morning hours, right? Before we start our day in our work. So GCP is one of the top three cloud providers. So now basically it is taking up 12% of the market share. If you have gone through the demo sessions, I have given you a chart where we had shown you, and the demand of this cloud provider is now picking up because people are either trying to switch their entire application to GCP, or they are trying to set up multi-cloud, right? So based on the resources which are cheaper or which are more aligned when they are doing the migration, they are setting up a multi-cloud environment, right? So now in the upcoming trends, learning more than one cloud will give you a bigger added advantage to the participants or the people who have only knowledge of one cloud, right? So this is on the advantageous part. And just speaking about GCP, GCP has more than 200 services right now. Those are running, and it is one of the cleanest cloud. Why? What do I mean by cleanest? It's net carbon neutral cloud. Means it is the energy that is now getting provided to GCP is mostly coming from renewable energies. So it's one of the cleanest cloud. And we will go ahead with most of the things in this GCP course, right? So this is just a heads up. Okay, so yesterday we have walked you through creating of your GCP account, which is a free account for 90 days. If someone has missed yesterday's class, has joined us today, you can create your free GCP account with your own Gmail ID and just putting a debit card or a credit card to it to support your billing, and you won't be charged up till 90 days, right? So this is how you can set that up. And if you're facing any challenge, please do let me know. I can help you in that, because the account is very much required, because when you are just learning, you need to learn it both ways, right? First, understanding the concepts, that one part, but you have to do the hands-on, right? That's the most important part, because theoretical things you can remember 1 month, 1.5 months, max of 2 months, until you again go back and revise. But if you're doing the things on your own hands in your own account and you're facing the challenges, that is when you actually learn, and that is what you will remember for a longer term, right? Because let's not think that I am learning GCP admin means it's a one month or 1.5 months course and I'm done with it. It never stops like that, because it is changing very fast and you have to keep on learning, right? So that is one way of I also do it. And I think you might take this forward in your way of learning, right? Keep on practicing, keep on doing the hands-on, right? Keep on failing, I would say. That is when you will learn more, because you will know where to go, what to search, and how to solve that problem. That is only the thing that I mainly focus on. I also love to do that. I think you guys also should go ahead and do that, right? Okay, so I was just speaking about regions and zones, right? So I have dedicated slides for it to help you understand. So here is that typical example that I was giving you, that let's of your data center sitting in London, but you have some users coming off from across different parts of the other sides of the world, be it Nigeria, India, right? And when they are trying to access your data, so uh, it what when they are trying to access your data, basically your, if you know about a bit of IPs, routers, switches, so basically what they are doing is they are doing small hops to take your data packets from one location to the other location, right? So from India, your data packets are getting going through multiple hops and then reaching that data center in London. And then again, there's a response back from that London data center to your own Indian region, right? So there is very high latency to it, means there can be very much high time bandwidth that is given, and when you are getting responded, you might have to wait for a longer time, right? But if you have your data centers near you, so that is when you get very faster data, right? So that is what. So regions, can you can think it of at as more modern bigger locations. Let's say US is one of the region, India is one of the region, UK or Europe has multiple regions. I'll show you on the cloud console also, where you find that and how you can select that when you are spinning up resources. And also, this is one challenge that they do solve. The second one is of giving you a availability of systems, right? That is one of the metrics that I spoke about, right, when we are discussing about DevOps metrics. So is that if you have one data center, it can give you a low availability, right? Because if the data center is crashed out, there is any power outage issue or network issue, your users are affected, right? And you don't want that to happen. So that is the reason why they have again brought multiple regions and multiple zones again in one of in a particular regions, right? So that is the major problems that they are trying to solve with that. And uh, again, this is the follow up to that. They have now set up multiple data centers to run your applications, and this is where zones have come in. So what do I mean by zones? We will just take up. Okay, I'll just explain you this. So what do I mean by meant by zone is when I give you that example, let's say again US East is a very big geographical locations. Now again they have distributed that into multiple smaller, or not, I won't say smaller, or strategic locations where they can again put your data centers where users are closely near to them, are again can use their data with low latency and high throughput. So strategically they have termed that as availability zones. So it can be US East is a bigger zone, and US East 1A, 1B, 1C are smaller zones to it, right? And then again, it does solve those ultimate problems, right? Of having a higher availability and giving you a fault tolerance, right? What is fault tolerance? I'll let you know when we go ahead. Let's not take up every term right now because that makes everything more complicated, right? And yes, few touch points. One region can have at least 3 zones, but it can also extend more up to 5 to 6 zones, because if it is a bigger region they are trying to address, then they generally have 5 to 6 zones. But if it is a smaller region and they have started or newly started in that region, they generally tend to set up 3 minimum zones to give you the higher availability, right? To place your data across different zones. Okay, and end of the day, it's when you're thinking of zones, just think of physical infrastructure or physical data centers, what that they have set up. And if someone is new to the term of data center, what I mean by data center is just nothing. When you see those big uh, let's say 1000 2000 racks of servers sitting pictures in your LinkedIn or any Google platform that you see, when of most of lights coming out or blinking in black, mostly in black, and colorful lights coming out, those are basically the data centers. It means a huge amount of servers, compact and kept in high security, right? Those I mean by in layman terms would be your data centers, what I mean by data centers, right? Okay, this is one of the views where now uh, GCP is sitting, and this is a global regional view. I'll just zoom it a bit, stick it like this. Is this visible for you guys? So it is now across 20 different regions, sitting across 20 different regions, and each region is again segregated into minimum of 3 to 5 and 6 of higher zones. So
Akash,
you,
your screen is frozen, I think.
is it?
It's not. It's a diagram you are able to see.
I think you are only sharing draw.io. Yeah.
Yes,
Tab.
yes.
Is it? Oh, sorry, my bad, my bad. Actually,
Yeah,
thanks.
Akash,
Yes, yes, I'll just quickly go. Actually, I was speaking through the PPT. Okay, I'll
no,
hold
we
on.
are not able to
Hold on.
see that.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. It's the reason why no questions are coming when you're first seeing it. Is it visible now, guys? Yes, no?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this was the PPT I had made and I was talking from. Okay, I'll just quickly run through it. Okay, so this is GCP PPT, and then I was just speaking of those examples, right? Of when of scaling, how cloud is solving those scaling problems. So I'll not go again into that. What used to happen before cloud and what cloud has solved. These are the examples that I was just speaking through. Then the cloud advantages. Then a few predominant services that are used by GCP across the world, and we will also extensively talk about these more major services going ahead. So just a heads up. And then GCP creating account, I already spoke. If anyone is facing any trouble, please do let me know. I'll help you with that. And then I was talking about this regions and zones, right? So we all know now what is a zone, what what is a region, I would say first, and then what is a zone. So now GCP has set up multiple regions, and I was just showing this map right now where GCP is now standing based on its regions that they have set up, right? So now you can see to solve that problem, they are now across 20 plus different regions, and each regions has now 3 to 5 AZs based on the criticality or the strategic locations of that region, how big or how geographically diverse it is. So you can see it is covering up US East, US West, then it's into again India, right? It's Asian country, for the Asian countries they have come to India. For the Europe they have uh, you EU Central, EU East, EU West. So they have actually, what do I mean by Central, East, and West? They have these are just geographical locations on which they have put a naming convention to separate uh, the data centers out. Because when you as a user, when you're trying to set that up, it is easier for you to understand. Okay, I am sitting in the eastern part of this continent, so I should pick up this region for me for my loads to get set up, right? So this is on what it is trying to solve, right? And just one more thing, if you have missed it, guys, is that I will be sharing the PPT mostly at near when we come near to the end of the course, so that you don't have to write everything down. Only take notes of few terms or terminologies which you want to again think of, and again go a very deep dive into later. So you can just take those notes down, right? Okay. And this is a typical example of what I was speaking about. So US West one, let's say, is one of the region code in GCP, and then what region does it covers is Dallas, Oregon, and North America, and then again it is divided into 3 zones, right? Of US West 1A, 1B, and 1C. This is basically of you keeping your data into different zones and having a HA model to your thing. Also, uh, disaster recovery, right? We will talk about disaster recovery and HA when we are trying to set up our databases or our VMs, right? So how to do those things. And this is a typical example of the data center sitting in the Asian regions. So it covers only Mumbai. It's sitting in Mumbai right now and serving the APEC traffic. Yeah, so this one, and they are constantly going ahead. Okay, before I come to compute, right? Uh, we are actually near the end of it, but one thing, 250, 292. Yes. So I think you all have set up now your. Okay, no, I need to talk about this a bit to help you understand. Okay. Yes, let me first talk about this a bit. Okay, I'll just quickly, because you have set up your GCP accounts up till now, so there is few things that you need to now know, right? Just take a look at this diagram over here, right? So this diagram mainly focuses on the entire structure of when you are spinning up a resource. I mean, let's take a typical example of a compute engine or a VM. So what is the layer in which that VM is coming up, right, on your console, or how is the structure or the resource hierarchy of that service in GCP, right? So typically, if you are using an account in GCP, it falls under first would be your domain. That is the cloud level when you are hitting that cloud.google.com. That's the domain that you are hitting. So what is domain? I will speak about it when we are talking about cloud DNS. But let's take domain is the first point, and from there it is telling you you can segregate your data based on whatever requirements you have, right? So the first thing is your organization. Okay, so what do I mean by organization? Let's say my organization name is A. So I will put my organization A. I'll set that up. I'll not put, I'll set that up. But I think free accounts don't have this feature. It is only with enterprise accounts. The organization level setting is given to you. So if you're not finding it, it's completely fine. They have one default set for you. So first would be the organization. Second would be they are giving you smaller folders. Okay, folder would be my second level. Folder means what if I tell you in terms of, let's say we all in Windows we all use multiple folders, right? So let's say D in under D drive folder, you again have multiple other file or directory folders, right? Let's think in that way. Folders again you won't be seeing it into Cloud Console. It is a terminology. It's a way of storing your data for the GCP guys. So they have they have their hierarchy like that. So that is how it stands. Organization, then a folder. So you will have control of organization, not much on folder, and then comes the major part is your project. So in your organization, let's say retail is can be termed as one of the folders, and under retail you will have definitely have multiple projects, like let's say project on Java, project on .NET, project on, let's say, a retail customer A, retail customer B, retail customer C. That is where you start defining your projects, and you will have to create your projects. And then when you are setting up your resources, any kind of resources, those come under those projects, right? So let's say retail customer A, and then the VMs under it. So it falls under retail customer A, right? And then again, if you have a retail customer B and you don't want to set those under retail customer A, so you can again create a new project and start uh, working on those resources under it. So what it helps is it helps you in segregation. This is one of the cool feature what I see when I use GCP. It's one of the very cool feature, but in AWS and all you don't have this feature. But in again, when you are using Azure, you have resource groups, but resource groups again another way tricky. It does not solve this problem to so much, but here in GCP this is a very good advantage that you get, right? You have that complete segregation, so that when someone new is coming to your team, or when you are trying to find something, because in your large organization you can think of, right, there are thousands or thousands of resources running, and it's human nature that we all can forget, right? But if you know which project to go through, it becomes very easier for you to find it out, right? And again, this is one of the use case that I was talking into. Apart from that, so there is another use case that it does solve is when you are trying to communicate, right, with one network, private network with another private network. So these again fall much more handy to you. So I was just giving an example of shared VPC or VPC pairing. So we will talk about this, but this is just when you try to talk from project one with project B, or folder one to folder B, or organization to organization talking with resources. This is what I was referring to. Okay. So if you come about the definitions, resources are created in projects. A folder can contain multiple projects, as I told you. An organization can contain multiple folders, right? And this is self-explanatory. What I just told you is it's again written here. These are few recommendations when you're using enterprise accounts, and these are the mostly used in industries because it does cost you a very big upfront amount. So these are few naming conventions that you can follow when you're using enterprise for your GCP accounts. that you can create separate projects for different environments. Let's say dev can have one project, uh, dev, test, prod, and then department wise also you can segregate, and also project wise and per environment wise. Let's say A1 dev, A1 prod, A2 dev, A2 prod. These are the things that you can follow. These are nomenclatures you will also get to know when you are also setting that up, which works, which does not work. I don't want to take much of your time into this. So apart from these three terms, right, organization, folder, project, right, there is one more very typical thing that you need to remember when you are work with GCP. It does not work without it, is your billing accounts, right? What do I mean by billing accounts? In a very quick example, if I tell you, when you are setting up your GCP, right, you are putting your credentials, right, from where your authentication or credentials, the visa or the credit card, right? So in turn, GCP is creating a billing account for you, okay, where if you are extending some resources, or where your usage reports are set and you need to pay for it, right? So this is one of the main thing, that is mandatory thing, that is required when you are setting up a project or setting up a GCP account, right? The billing accounts. So what does billing account contain? Billing account contains your payment details. Every project with active resources should be associated with a billing account, right? Without this, you cannot work with GCP, right? And there are two ways in which these works. One is self-serve, is when you are using individual accounts, or mostly when you are using your credit or debit card, and otherwise is invoice, right? When bigger organizations are using it, they do sign a contract with GCP, and they are sent invoice end of the months or end of the quarters, and then they pay out the things, right? So this is one thing that I wanted to tell you, right? And on cloud console, let me just quickly show you, and then I'll touch upon one more thing that's very much important. Maybe is my screen visible, guys? I just switched to the GCP platform. Yes, no, maybe. Hello.
Yeah, it's me.
Okay, my GCP platform is visible, right? Okay, so first is when you have just logged in. This is the dashboard, typical dashboard that you see, right? When you have logged in, right, with all the, if you click here, you get all the products. I'll just giving an overview. It's all the products that they are using, and there's a quick navigation box. This is the segregation on based on the resources they have, and on a larger terminology things, right? If I talk about compute engine, means I talk about VMs, the storage part that is given to a VM, and then the ASGs, or the instance groups. Uh, on these terms, they have just segregated it for users to understand and quickly fetch it. There is a pin and unpin thing. Pin means there are multiple other resources, right? So if you are pinning it, it stays on top. So these are few basic things. So left hand side, you get to scroll around with all of your resources. This is your cloud active shell. Is that what do you mean by shell? So it's just a box where you can communicate with GCP cloud GCP resources using CLI prompt of, say, let's say G Cloud is one of the CLI that GCP uses. For BigQuery, you use a CBT or CB, like this, right? You can communicate with them. This is a Linux or sort of a box, and you can use it for your own purposes, right? If you are trying to host an application, run a database server, you can do anything with that, right? And for this, you don't need to set up anything, right? You just need to go ahead and click on this shell, and GCP does provide you a cloud console to work with, right? The few things we will also work on when we try to use the CLI. Apart from this, there is notifications. This notifications is basically based on the activities that you do on your console. It does give you a follow-ups of what you have done, what you have not done, and then this is again on the your profile related settings, right? This is very much self-explanatory. I'll just come across to this, right? I was just speaking about what is a project or folder or an organization, right? So this is where you can select your projects. This is where it does show up whenever you are doing up on your selecting your projects. So you can see multiple projects set up already. Because this is my personal account, I'm not given to create an organization, but I can definitely go and create a project on a folder. Okay. So if I go ahead and create a folder, let's say folder GCP classes, and then uh, yes, I am having that. Okay, so as the organization privilege is not there for this free tier, as I was telling you, so you can't create a folder, but yes, this is where you can, if you're using your client or in your organization, you will be definitely having this privilege. So this is where you can create a folder, and then you can segregate your data on keeping it under that, right? By creating multiple projects. So when you are creating a project, there are two mandatory things that you need to provide. Let's say CP classes. This would be my project name. And as I was telling you, the two most mandatory things that needs to go ahead with my billing account is when you're creating a project, there will in your industry, you will have, let's say, multiple billing accounts. Let's say one for retail, one for e-commerce, one for health, one for a number of use cases that you have, right? So you need to select your particular billing account because it will help you to estimate the costs, right? When you will be uh, putting your SOPs or putting your cost sheets to your clients, right? This becomes handy, and also when you are doing cost optimization, this becomes much more handier. So you select your billing account and then the organization you are part of. Because I'm using a free tier, not a free tier, I'm using my personal account, so I won't have that privilege. So you can select this organization and then go ahead and create it, right? So yeah, so as I was telling, this box of notification, it will give you that quick thing. So here is my project that I have already created, and there are a few other nitty gritties to it. If you want to go more into that, you can put tags and you can set those up. These are very much self-explanatory. I won't go much into that right now. Okay. Mm, yes, apart from that, I wanted to show you one more thing, that is just won't come up right now. Okay, let's keep this out for now, or in PPC I can show. Yes, one more thing is whenever you are trying to set up a new service or work with any service, you have to enable your APIs, right? This is one of the criteria of you doing it, right? So let's take this up once again. But for that, what I wanted to quickly show you is the OCI diagram, right? Because that is one of the holy grail that you also need to know when you're working it out. Just quick take up 5 minutes of your time. I guess we are going ahead of our schedule. We have passed our schedule, but is important. Okay, there are few OCI diagrams that it tries to solve, and I'll tell you why we need to know this, because this will help you to understand a lot of things. Okay, so it is bottom to down. I need to write up. Okay, so you have uh, heard about a few terminologies known as IaaS or SaaS or PaaS, right? So those things, what do I mean by IaaS? It is infrastructure as a service. What do I mean by PaaS is platform as a service, and what do I mean by SaaS is software as a service, right? So these are the terms that you definitely hear out when you are working now in this industry. But you need to understand this in terms of the basic building blocks uh, that build up these terminologies, right? So when I speak about IaaS, it is infrastructure as a service. So basically, it's the backbone of any application that you are setting up, because you cannot go ahead setting up your application without setting up your networks, without setting up your servers, where you need to store your data. And then comes the virtualization part. What is virtualization? Let's not go much deep into it, but these are the basic things that fall into that while you are setting that up, right? So this up to what, just think it on to bottom to up approach. So when you are talking about networking, storage, servers, and virtualization, we generally talk about IaaS or infrastructure as a service, right? So what falls under this are typical storages or GCS, or the persistent disk that we would be seeing, PDs, or our VMs that we will be spinning it up. Those more mainly fall upon this, right? Because when we are trying to set those up, you will be seeing that we are specifically mentioning that which VPC to use. That VPC falls under networking. Then how much storage to use. If you tell 30 GB, so 30 GB of either SSDs or PDs will get attached to it. So we basically are uh, solving the problem of storage. Then what is a server? Server means then we give it the specification. This is how we generally set that up, the IaaS service, right? So you need to know this on the fundamental basis, right? Because end of the day is these problems are that getting catered to, right? I just wanted to touch upon this. Then there are two services. You also, one service that you mostly heard of is PaaS. That's platform as a service. That's the middleware and OS plus the other layers that are beneath it. That comprises of the PaaS. So when you talk about Cloud Run, or when you talk about Cloud App Engine in terms of GCP, these are the things that fall under PaaS services. It means that they give you the, oh, and sorry, again, the runtime is also part of it. I just missed that. Yes, runtime is also part of it. From runtime to networking, it gives you the entire platform where you can just bring your data and just set up your application and run it, right? This is mostly when you also talk about serverless things, or these type of services or PaaS services fall use these OSI fundamentals, right? When they're giving it to you, because you don't have to either think about your networking, storage, where your runtime is. You just come there, place your data, and just run it, right? And there is the typical product known as SaaS. It's software as a service. So when we are using Dropbox, when you are using Zoom or Gmail, it's basically we are just utilizing those softwares, but backbone of it is entirely uh, the from the application layer down to the networking. Everything is set up for you, right? It's just a entire software given to you, right? So this model you definitely need to remember when you are hitting or spinning up, or when you are trying to work with any service in the cloud infrastructure, right? First you need to identify which of the service I'm using. Either I'm using a IaaS service or a PaaS service or a SaaS service. This complexity of thought should not be there in your mind, right? And you need to know this OSI. If you want to have this, I can just quickly put you up. But can I attach these notes? No, I guess. Okay, just putting it for everyone, at least if you want to go through it a bit. Yes, you can. Okay, maybe we are done, mostly done for today. I'll take it up tomorrow again. So, just a quick thing. Someone was saying, I just forgot the name. I guess Shivani, right? So she was mentioning about the regions from where we can see. So this is a typical place where you can see the entire stack of regions that do have. And then when you set up any resource, then you also get to select your zones, right? So you have to hover around to VPC networks, and then you can see your entire list of regions that they do provide you, right? I was speaking about 20 odd regions, so here is where you can find it, right? Okay, I am done for today. If you have any questions, please do let me know, and then we can drop off for today. Any question, guys? Uh,
No questions right now. We'll go through this, and if I'm good with any of the questions, I'll let you know tomorrow.
yeah, sure. Good, good. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. And people who have joined, plus please try to drop your email and mobile number. And this one thing. Okay, then. If you don't have any questions, let's connect tomorrow. Have a good day, everyone. Bye bye. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.